Hello, everybody. It's your pal Ian here to host the Pucknology Writers Room number 20. No Kevin this week, unfortunately, but with me today is Drew Weber. How's it going, Drew?
It's going pretty well, Ian.
Awesome. And Joe Hospodar is going to be joining us as soon as he gets home, so uh, be prepared for awesomeness. All right, just making
Always
sure. I
fun
got I
when.
got a guest host to my right here is Calum as always too. Let's just say hi, Calum. Ah, there he is. How cute. All right. Just so if you're wondering what that noise is, it's my son. Yeah, I don't do the Kevin Lacey intro, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not taking your shit in the chat tonight. All right, so let's get started. We'll get down to business. Obviously, let's do some quick news quick first. Craig Anderson, he took his leave of absence for real this time, except not for real because then he came back and played anyway on Hockey Fights Cancer Night. But obviously, with him coming back, the Senators had to make a trade to make that happen, so they traded a fifth-round pick for Mike Condon. Condon got a shutout in his debut, which is nice, and so I thought that was interesting. I thought, at first I was like, all right, so why would you trade a pick for a guy who probably was heading to waivers anyway? But then, when you think about it from the perspective of, now they got their guy, and this gives Craig Anderson, who obviously wants to be with his wife, time. Um, it's I know, Caleb. Wow, he just
Guest
wants to be on the
panelist
show.
today.
Yeah, he's really chatty, talking over top of me. Kind of rude. What I was saying though, with the Senators, I thought it was a classy move, because they didn't have to spend the pick. They could have just, but obviously this gave the ability. It was the price to pay so that Craig Anderson could go and be with his wife, and I think that's really, classy of them, even though obviously it's not exactly what you wanted.
Right, but
What do you
like
think?
like you said, it's great that they got Condon so that Anderson could be with his wife because it's a very delicate situation, and
Right.
as much as you don't want to talk like hockey politics about it, it's kind of a jerk move if you force Anderson back while his wife is going through this. So they did the right thing, going out, spending that fifth round pick, getting a goalie who heck got him a shutout. And I think the kind of secondary impact of this is LA Kings could have gotten Condon, and Ottawa got him instead.
That's true. And I didn't even think about it from that perspective. And you gotta love it if you're the Penguins. I mean, you get a guy on waivers and flip him and turn him into an asset. I mean, that's doesn't get much better than that. I mean, it's still a fifth round pick, but we've seen fifth round picks turn out. So, it's great. Obviously, we wish, we said this last show. Obviously, we wish, Craig Anderson's family nothing but the best, and hopefully they get through this. And cancer sucks, and it's a crappy thing to happen, and it sucks that when this happens, and then Andrew Hammond gets injured. Right, the first game that Craig Anderson's gone. I mean, that's just the worst luck that you could possibly have, and so it's good that they got past that. All right, next thing, we have a couple of retirements to talk about. We lost a true all-star, the first person since Wayne Gretzky to retire as the All-Star MVP. John
John
Scott.
Scott. Man, he was bad at hockey, but he was probably the best personality in the league. You know, when he was on San Jose, there was the whole like, oh, he's a locker room presence kind of thing. I'm like, that's a load of crap. But then you kind of hear him talk, you see what he does, the kind of person he is, and you kind of start to get that like, okay, I could see where having this guy in the room can like really help you out. I still don't like him getting ice time, but
Well, no.
having him around is a good thing. So I wish him the best of luck in retirement. He doesn't have to deal with any of the NHL BS, and he can just be with his wife and kids now.
Oh, please do TV. Please do TV. Please do
Oh,
TV.
him and Roberto Luongo won on a on a panel
Oh,
together.
could you imagine that color team? That would be
That'd be
fantastic.
great.
Oh man, that's. I can't say enough good things about John Scott. Again, look at when John Scott got signed by the Sharks. I was very out there, like, this, what the hell's this team doing, and this is why the team missed the playoffs, and rah 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 rah. But but it was. But he was when you got him as a person, he was a good dude, and it's funny because just to kind of segue into something else that was news that I forgot to put in the notes. The NHL, I think Ken Campbell from the Hockey News said that was it the Hockey News? I can't remember.
I think it's from the Hockey News. Yeah.
Yeah, so super, the ultra personification of pacifist hockey media was like, oh, this year it's going to be just bona fide NHLers in the All Star game, and I'm kind of like, wasn't John Scott a bona fide NHLer? Like, he had a bajillion games under his belt. He seemed to keep getting jobs. Like, I don't know what the criteria is going to be to prevent John Scott. And before we even get into that, like, what is wrong with the NHL? That made the All Star game last year interesting, and the 3-on-3 helped. Don't get me wrong, I like the 3-on-3 tournament, but the John Scott stuff, like, that was a storyline. No one was talking. No one talks about the All Star game after the All Star game. No one gives a damn. But after this one, they did. And the fact that the NHL just can't see the forest for the trees, I can't understand it.
Exactly. It's like what do you remember from the 2015 All Star game? Was it Brian Elliott taking a selfie? Was that it? That was the thing you remembered? What I'm going to remember from this past All-Star game is Giordano, Burns, and Pavelski lifting John Scott on their shoulders while the whole crowd is yelling MVP for the guy who wrote probably the best Players Tribune article I've ever seen.
Damn right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And moving on from John Scott, we have the retirement of a one Raffi Torres. Probably should have done this a year ago, but Raffi Torres, from all accounts, is a good dude, but he was a predatory hitter. And I know I go on this rant all the time because I know some people in our little conglomerate of morons, like, and I'm including that conglomerate of morons. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, no one's paying me for my hockey opinions, so let me just get that out of the way right now. But and not just us. I mean, Sharks fans in general. Anytime there was a suspension, well, if that was Raffi Torres, let me tell you, no. And here's the reason why: Raffi Torres would get a 41-game suspension because he was Raffi fucking Torres. All right, I apologize for the language. That's why he got the suspension. Those suspensions are reserved for the Raffi Torreses and Matt Cooks and everything else. And I understand how you get a guy on your team and look I supported Raffi Torres as a Shark for the 16 games I think he dressed for us. But at the end of the day, though, I didn't, when you have a guy who's made so many dumb hits like Torres, and yeah, maybe some of the later hits weren't as bad as some of his earlier ones, but when you have that reputation, I mean, he has nobody to blame but to look into the mirror and look in, and he has only himself to blame because he got off for hits. I mean, how many hits that he didn't get suspended for that he probably should have been? I think the Mahalik one comes to mind right off the top of the head,
Absolutely.
And there was hits before the Mahalik one. So I that's the thing with Raffi Torres for me. It's like, yeah, from all accounts, a nice guy, from what I understand. But this guy was a dangerous, reckless player, and the game is better off for him being gone.
Absolutely, dirty player kind of thing. Knew how to play hockey, though. I mean, you don't end up being a first round pick if you don't know how to play hockey. So he was definitely an at least above average hockey player. He was just really, really dirty. And I gotta throw this out there for Hockey Jerk. He would always be like, I love how people are saying Raffi Torres is going to save the Sharks team after he's played all 16 games for them. So yeah,
no, it's true, and that's the one thing that and I, when you go back and look at that, that blew my mind that it had been that few games because, and he was he on that third line, he was something on that third line until he was suspended or until we had to try and create zombie leg.
Was it the $1 billion man, but the entire $1 billion is spent on his knee?
Right. Yeah, basically. So I mean, like I said, from all accounts a nice guy, but a terribly dirty player that gets a pass because, or he's supposed to get a pass because he wore teal. Just like John Scott, you bring these guys in with with reputation, and then you cry when they get suspended for the reputation.
Yeah.
I mean that's the reality of it, right? Okay, so oh man, what a crazy game in Vancouver last night. Was it in Vancouver or
Ooh.
was it in Toronto?
Uh,
It was somewhere.
it was Vancouver and
It was
Toronto.
a
Who cares
game.
where it was?
Yeah, who was? Oh man, what a game that was. I only caught like bits and pieces of it. And obviously, I caught all the fun stuff. So, I mean, where to start? So the let's start with the Kadri hit because I was surprised. Like honestly, I thought the only question in this with this hit was how many games. I was really surprised there was no suspension. Where are you on that?
So when I first saw it, I actually thought it was a clean hit because I saw it in fast motion kind of thing, or like regular speed, and I thought it was shoulder to shoulder. And then you look at the replay and you're like, oh no, that's all head pretty much. And granted, I don't think Kadri has an intent to hit Sedin in the head, even though he has that suspension history, which for some reason he didn't
Yeah.
get suspended for this hit. Uh, but I doubt he had the intention of I'm going to hit Daniel Sedin in the head. I think he's trying to go shoulder to shoulder there and just misses in front. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, what do you think on it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for most hits, I don't think there's an intent to hit a guy in the head on a lot of these hits. Doesn't make it okay that they don't, that he doesn't get hit and, you hit him in the head still. It doesn't make it okay that you
Exactly.
didn't intend to.
Exactly.
Um,
I think he should have been suspended for this hit.
yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's an absolutely suspendable hit. I was shocked. Like, I was just flabbergasted that there's no penalty. And you, I get like he's one of the bigger names on the Leafs, but and there is a two-tier. Let's not kid ourselves. There's definitely a two-tier disciplinary system in the league. Stars get less, get preferential treatment. They don't get to defenders because they go so long without actually being suspended. You want to look at a player who like exemplifies that. Look at Duncan Keith.
Hmm.
How many how many things has Duncan Keith gotten away with? And I love Duncan Keith. Don't get me wrong, but and then Rocket, saying in the chat if that's Darnell Nurse instead of then yeah, Darnell Nurse is getting suspended because he's a rook,
Yep.
right? So that's I think that's part of the problem, and I think a lot of people obviously have different things that they'd like to see. I had a chat on Twitter today about that they should suspend to the injury, which I think is a terrible idea because no one takes that. You could hit you can make that same hit on three different players, and one's
Get
going to
three
play
different
the rest of
injuries.
the game.
Yeah.
One might be out for a month, and then the other might be out for a year. So is it fair that the other guy sits out for a year if the other, like I just this game for game thing is it? I understand where people are coming from,
Hmm.
but I don't think it's logical. And then also with that, look, I always go back to if it's a Sharks fan, I always go back and say, okay, so do you realize how much time David Perron missed from that Thornton?
Hmm.
Would that have justified? Are you game for that? Now, in hindsight, with no benefit, you do have people that say, yeah, I'm fine with that. But I just think, man, if that's in the situation, look, if I'm in that situation, and even like I didn't really mind the Perron hit as much, I haven't really come around on it, but I'm livid if Joe Thornton's out
Hmm.
for as long as
Hmm.
because that's my season. That's your team's season right there.
Exactly.
So
And the other
I
thing
think
is,
go ahead.
the other thing is like, what if, let's say, someone hits Tomas Hurdle in the knee, kind of thing.
Right.
Hurdle already has knee injuries, so he's going to be out for longer because he's
Right.
already had a previous history. So should you suspend somebody longer because the person you hit is already injured, kind of thing? So that's another thing to kind of take into account with the whole game for game debate.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think what they need to do is I think they need to suspend for the hit, right? Like I think, I mean, obviously, if it's the more egregious, I think the longer the suspension period, and then you start doing the multipliers as the hits continue to happen. But going game for it's not a good idea, and I understand the sentiment behind it, and I get it, man. But you know what? I've got to when I look at it, I've got to look at it in ways like, okay, but if this happens to my team, how okay with it am I now?
Hmm.
Because I don't want to be a hypocrite. I work really, really hard hypocrite on here. So sometimes I am. Look at I'm not perfect. There's sometimes where I say really dumb things, and they turn out to be wrong later, and I have to eat my words. And not just,
Yeah.
oh, I think LA's going to win the first round. I've said some really stupid that I've,
Oh, I was
people
thinking
hear.
our Edmonton's going to be bad this year
Oh yeah, yeah,
because I
yeah.
said that
Edmonton's
too.
it's going to be terrible. Calgary Flames are going to be awesome. Um, New York Rangers are going to be. I mean, I said all summer the Rangers were going to be a dumpster fire.
Hey, they still have time. There's still time.
They still have time to be a dumpster fire. I'm not. I'm not very comfortable with that analysis anymore.
But yeah,
So I mean,
go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the game itself, though, like watching the highlights from the when Miller and Anderson came out. From what I saw on Twitter, because I didn't watch the game live, I saw the tweets from it, kind of thing, and I'm expecting this
Right.
hardcore like 1996 Colorado Avalanche, Detroit Red Wings. Oh, here comes Patrick Waugh out on Brendan Shanahan. Oh, Mike Vernon just levels him, kind of thing. No, that wasn't really what happened. It was just kind of Miller comes into the corner, I think throws maybe one punch, and then Anderson just kind of skates over, and they just kind of make hand gestures at each other.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. Like the ref cam. The ref cam's the best thing they've ever invented because the ref cam of Miller like just throwing down the gloves and lunging on Martin. That was great. So let's talk about that because that's good. So what did you think of that whole situation? Like Matt Martin grabs the rook. I know that's what people don't like, and Christine, yeah, nailed in the chat the Preds. I mean, I not just. I mean, there were much smarter people than me that were just riding the Preds as the Western Conference be all end all this year.
We'll get to
Um,
that because I'm still on the Preds bandwagon. We'll get
okay,
to that though.
but so what did you think? Matt Martin goes after the rook. I didn't think that it was just your typical play. Guy gets hit, guy gets mad, push shove, and then they start fighting. I didn't think much of it. I mean, rookie needs to watch where he's throwing fists at, and then obviously the Canucks took exception. So what did you think of that?
Well, I mean, you can't get off in this league just because you're a rookie, kind of thing. If I think that's what Martin would have reacted to, no matter who it was, whether it was a rookie or whether it was a more experienced player, kind of thing. But yeah, you got to watch out because welcome to the league, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want people taking liberties on guys, but I mean, and if you're Vancouver, also, I mean, you've lost, I think, 8 in a row now. You got shut out, I think, 5 of them. I mean, obviously you're a little extra salty right now. I didn't have a problem with it. I agree with you. It's sad how I don't say it's sad, but it is kind of sad. I don't care. I'm gonna be a meathead for a minute and say, yeah. Um, when when you read about it, they made it sound so much worse than it was. Like, was it really a line brawl? No, not really. I mean,
It
yeah,
was
you're
a
not gonna see.
scrum.
It was a scrum, and there was some fists thrown. I mean, and like Ryan Miller came out and like everyone jumped Matt Martin, and then afterwards, I guess it was Erica Branson in the hallway just yelling, "Matt Martin's dead," which the last time that happened, I think Todd
Things didn't go over
Bertuzzi.
well.
Yeah, Todd Bertuzzi comes out. What do you think about that? Like, cause me, I think it's just stupid stuff said in the heat of the moment. I think that a lot of people obviously we all saw what happened with the Todd Bertuzzi thing, and I don't think anyone's going to be dumb enough to go down that road again.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful what you say. I mean, I know a lot of it's said in the heat of the moment kind of thing, but you've got to keep your composure. You're a professional athlete. You're in the
Right.
spotlight. So I mean, you've got to keep your composure. You need to control yourself in these situations because especially now, the way news spreads, if you say something stupid, everyone
Yeah.
knows about it very quickly, and everyone's making judgments about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not surprised that there was no discipline. I don't think it was worthy. Like, it was a heat of the moment after a game. We've seen players pissed off after a game. I don't think that he needed to be fined or suspended or anything like that, but I would be very, very, very surprised if Gary Bettman is not sitting front and center the next time they meet in December 3rd, I believe.
And that's what I think Rocket was saying. Is like, do you guys expect a 5v5 brawl to start? I hope so.
No, I think Gary Bettman's flying in for that game, and I think cooler heads prevail.
Yeah.
I think the final penalty minute count, I believe, was like 174 minutes. I'd have to go double check, but I feel like that's right. Maybe, you know what? Um, okay, we'll talk about other things and I'll look later. Um, some sad news. Marek Svatos played most of his games with the Colorado Avalanche. Passed away. Unconfirmed reports, obviously, Euro. I think it's Euroavs.com or whatever is an Avs Euro site. They said that it was an accidental overdose. I don't want to say that for sure, obviously, because it's one source and it's not really been reported in any reputable source. So I'm gonna wait for the details on this one. Point is, though, it's sad. 34 years old is obviously too young to go. I couldn't even imagine going at 34.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's awful. Obviously, rest in peace.
yeah.
Oh, 130 minutes and 6 game misconducts. Thanks, Rocket.
Thank you, Rocket. But yeah, that's heavy stuff. I mean, when I first heard about, his death, the first thing I did was, you kind of look at his injury history kind of thing, see if he has any concussions. He didn't have any concussions, so I mean, who knows what happened? We'll find out probably within the next couple of days. Ian, you're muted.
Muted myself. I know. I'm trying to do the thing here. Okay. So we got some questions, obviously.
Because we're popular now.
I know. So I'm gonna kind of do this in reverse order than I have them listed here, just because I think one's kind of a good topic, because it's we gotta talk some Sharks here at some point.
Oh yeah.
So last night on Pucknology After Dark, this is from Don Holio. Chris said that it's too early to panic. And so when should we as Sharks fans panic? I will give you the mic first.
All right. So I think you start panicking not Christmas. I'm sorry, Thanksgiving. Okay. If things haven't regressed to how we feel like they should look, if the PDO is still trash kind of thing, if Jones isn't performing how we want him to perform, if the scoring is still dried up, I think that's when you start to get worried, is around American Thanksgiving, because we're still early. We're 12 games in. I mean, look at the Montreal Canadiens. They ran a PDO streak and went 9-0-1 before, losing 10-0 to the Blue Jackets. So I'm not going to worry yet. If the Sharks have a losing record in Thanksgiving, then I'll start to get a little bit concerned. But for now, I just want to see things play out.
I am so happy you mentioned American Thanksgiving, because that seems to be like the going date, right? Like that seems to be like teams that are in the American Thanksgiving generally go. Now, it's important to point out, though, and I've done a little bit of research here, because I was hoping that this would come up. And since 2000, on average, 4 teams that are in the playoffs by American Thanksgiving end up falling out of the race. And and then teams obviously in their place obviously claw back in who are out American Thanksgiving. The Sharks have done this actually 3 times. They did it in 05-06, 07-08, and 10-11, where they were out of the playoffs by American Thanksgiving and clawed their way back in. So it's not impossible, but yeah, I mean, obviously, that's what, a quarter of the teams.
I think that's about 20 games. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I'm just saying, like, a quarter of your playoff teams are basically in American Thanksgiving. So, or 3/4 of them are in. So I think American Thanksgiving, yeah, that's a good date. I still don't think you should hammer on the panic button, but I think that you should be at least concerned at that point. I think that
absolutely,
being a little bit more concerned, and I'm not saying that everyone should go and burn everything down on American Thanksgiving. Black Friday, just burn it down. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if you are concerned at that point, I'm not going to hold that against you. I'm going to look at how far they would have to be really, really far out from you to really panic, like super.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes into it too, is like if the Sharks are like out, like they don't win a game until Thanksgiving kind of thing, then you're really worried. But I know a lot of people in the chat are saying January right now, and I can totally understand that, where the Sharks are like a middle of the road team at Thanksgiving, still don't know what they're going to look like yet. I totally get that. So January I can agree with as well.
Yeah, I think in January for sure. I think when you hit the new year, then everything, you start putting everything under a microscope, because now you're heading into the trade deadlines. Decisions have to be made about what you're going to do to, shore things up. Are you a buyer? Are you a seller? All of that stuff. I mean, that just all that stuff becomes like that's top conversation pieces come January.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, by January for sure. I still think that if you are concerned, I don't think you should throw everything, like I said, don't light everything on fire, but depending on how far they're out, yeah, you can be concerned at that point, and you can, I mean, if you choose to panic, I won't hold it against you. I personally, I don't plan to, but if you want to, hey, by that point I might stop telling you to.
Got some guest host action there.
Yeah, I guess toast action. All right, so the next question, and this is from Mike Neves, and we got our mailbag. So the Penguins, obviously, with Matt Murray back, the Penguins are going to have to make a decision as far as the expansion draft goes. Um, so I want to kind of get into that. Now, what do you do? I mean, the Penguins have to protect Marc-Andre Fleury, so what do they do to keep Matt Murray?
It's gonna be interesting. If they want to keep Matt Murray, the only thing they can do is expose him in the expansion draft and hope to God Las Vegas takes Ben Bishop instead. If assuming Ben Bishop isn't moved from the Tampa Bay Lightning, because they're going to protect Vasilevsky over Bishop. Uh, but I mean, the situation that is in Pittsburgh, they face a tough. I can't talk right now. They face a tough decision because you can go the trade route thinking that if we're going to lose Murray in the expansion draft, we might as well deal him and try to get something in return for him while they still can. Uh, but then you're also still competing with Ben Bishop because Tampa Bay is going to be doing the same exact thing. Tampa Bay is still going to try to move Bishop. So it's a matter of you got to sell Murray over Bishop sometime before the deadline, or if neither one of them is traded, you have to expose Murray and hope that Bishop is taken by Las Vegas instead. So it's not a good situation. I'd be very concerned.
You know what I thought though? I looked back, especially when I think it was, I want to say maybe it was the Thrashers, and when the Thrashers and Wild came in, and I feel like the Sharks made trades so that because they couldn't protect Evgeny Nabokov, so they traded players with that being a part of it. That basically, like, we're going to give you this player, in an exchange you won't take Yevgeny Nabokov in the expansion draft. So I wonder if Pittsburgh would go down that route. The other thing too is I'm not 100% sure. Like, I know it's coming up in the media a lot, so I don't want to basically go out of turn, but I was looking at Cap Friendly, and my understanding is right now he doesn't have a no move anymore. It's just a no trade with, I think, 12 teams, which means there's a chance that they don't have to protect him because it's only a no move that needs
For
to be protected.
Fleury, I think he has modified no movement clause. Because I was looking at that earlier. It's a modified NTCR and modified NMC, and I don't remember which one it was.
Because I know he had like a full no movement clause for the first 3 years of his deal. I just don't know if he has a no movement clause right now, which it's something interesting. I'd like to see what kind of what happens there. Joe, we're just talking about Marc-Andre Fleury and Matt Murray and what the Penguins are going to do. Any thoughts on that?
Hi. Sorry, I'm late.
No, no worries.
You're here.
Ironically, last week I mentioned, like we were talking about the Ontario rain and how like it sucks having to live in Ontario. And ironically, tonight the reason I'm late for the Pucknology Writers Room is because I was stuck in traffic right outside the Citizens Bank Arena where the Ontario rain play. I was driving back from Arizona, so. That's on me. But as far as Marc-Andre Fleury and Matt Murray go, it kind of reminds me a lot of the Vesatoskala Evgeny Nabokov situation when both those players are just like playing lights out. I mean, ideally Pittsburgh could go for a tandem, but with the expansion draft coming up, I really think that Pittsburgh is kind of in a pickle right now to kind of go with one or the other. Fortunately for them, though, I feel like right now a lot of teams are going to overpay for goalies. I mean, you look at Los Angeles, the unfortunate Craig Anderson situation, if that develops. They just signed Mike Condon, but I mean that just goes to show that it's kind of a buyer's market right now for goaltenders. So as far as who's the better hand, though, I don't know if you guys have talked about that. I think Matt Murray's phenomenal against the Sharks. I don't know. and he had a phenomenal playoff run. But it's kind of a toss-up. They're both great goaltenders. Marc-Andre Fleury probably not as great in the playoffs, but again,
he's also older too. I mean, 31. How much longer can you expect a goalie to be effective after 31? And granted, we see it in Roberto Luongo, who's older and still good. Lundqvist is starting to show, or started to show some cracks. Although look at what the Rangers are doing now.
But I mean, you look at Luongo with the Schneider situation. It's kind of like that back in Vancouver. I think that at 31, though, you're right. They're in their prime, but they're just going to get worse being on the bench.
Absolutely.
Because they are old. They're not used to, when you're playing full seasons, all of a sudden you're being jettisoned into a backup role. Your muscles aren't the same when you're in your early 20s like that. So yeah, that's you're absolutely right. So it'll be interesting for sure, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, I think at the worst, I think the best case scenario for the Penguins is to do like I said earlier. You make a trade a player, and you basically say for, Scout's honor, don't draft my player that I just traded you this player, so you wouldn't do that. And I don't see the NHL having a problem with that. I think, I think there's going to be a lot of that. I think other players, I think when you look at Florida, a lot of people are kind of like, well, Reimer obviously is going to get taken, but if I don't know what Luongo has as far as contracts right now, but I'm just thinking if they don't have to protect Luongo, doesn't Luongo just say, hey guys, if you take me, I'm just retiring? You know what I mean?
Well, the backup, Florida's backup right now is James Reimer, right?
Yeah.
Correct, but he's signed for the next 5 years.
So
if they don't have to protect Luongo, I think they protect Reimer, because Luongo's 36 right now. I mean, why wouldn't you want the younger Reimer in net for you?
Well, I think that's why they signed that deal, right? 5 years.
Yeah.
He's obviously the heir apparent.
Luongo, though, also wanted to go back to Florida, and this is kind of reminiscent of the Patrick Marleau situation, where you have a player who clearly wants to play for a team. So I don't know if they really want to build the foundation of a franchise goaltender off of a 36-year-old who's already made it clear that he wants to kind of play out the rest of his twilight years in Florida. So that's a very risky move for Vegas to take. So
yeah,
I think right now Vegas probably would want to go after a guy like Reimer. They would want to go.
Oh, for sure, I would.
After Murray or someone. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I can't. Yeah, I think after the trade deadline, we're really going to have a bigger idea of how Vegas is going to kind of pull some triggers, because once those contracts get redone, once those trades happen, and kind of players make it more clear where they want to sit, I think. Because I mean, at the same time, as exciting it is for Vegas to have all these players to choose from, the last thing they want to do is rip a player like Luongo out of an environment where they're comfortable, and then have this kind of pissed off player to start their franchise with, who clearly doesn't want to be there.
Right. Yeah. So. No, I completely agree. So the next topic I want to move on to, and this is we're a little behind the 8 ball on this, but Elliot Friedman reported not too long ago that Brent Burns not so much of a slam dunk as maybe some of us think it is. It seems like there's some chatter going on, but not as much as you would expect, considering how important of a player Brent Burns is to this team. So I want to, first, I guess, how do you guys feel about this? The fact that negotiations aren't as strong. I mean, it is only November, but how do you feel?
I'm not too concerned. I mean, reading that article, it sounds like Burns wants to stay in San Jose, but he's just keeping his options open, which is, I mean, smart. You're Brent Burns. I mean, any team in the league will want you, but I mean, I think he's going to stay in San Jose. It sounds like a lot of it is contingent upon the core group staying together, which is basically making sure Joe Thornton stays in San Jose after this season, which he probably will. Yeah, there's no way Joe Thornton is going to leave after this season.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't see why he would want to leave. We just went to the Cup final last season. We have the cap space to give him a raise. And unless there's another team who's competitive and has the cap space to spend significantly more than San Jose on him, I don't see him leaving the Bay Area.
Go ahead, Joe.
I agree with all of that. I mean, I just bought a Brent Burns jersey 2 years ago, so although the last time I bought
you bought a Choo-Choo jersey, didn't you?
I bought a defenseman's jersey. No, I bought a Douglas Murray jersey before he got traded, so hopefully I don't jinx it. But No, like you said, I mean, I think that he's just kind of trying to. He doesn't want to rush into an extension, and he doesn't want to. He knows right now that he's coming off of a Norris-nominated season. He was arguably, I would say, pretty much it's commonly accepted that he's right now at least one of the top 3 offensive defensemen in the league. I think that he's just trying to make sure that he can kind of make sure his value is entered into negotiations at the top of the market. So I think he really is going to wait for the trade deadline, see if there's any of the defensemen who have kind of similar deals on the table, and then he'll weigh his options from there. But I agree. I don't think there's any team that would want to take on that contract at this point. I don't think that, unless there's some miracle offer of like NBA money to go to like back to Minnesota or something, I don't see that happening. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it. I don't want this to go for like I don't want this to go to the first, right? Like obviously if we're getting too close to July 1st, then I'm super, super worried at that point. I don't like that things aren't moving along right now. Like, look, to me, this is like, Doug Wilson, right now you have one job. Sign Brent Burns. Like, to me, that's it. Like, that should be your number one priority. Everything else basically cascades off what the money is and how that works, right? To me, it's like that's the guy you pick up. But am I super concerned right now? Like, oh my God, this is the end of the world? No, of course not. I mean, but it's a little disheartening because I thought that this was like going to be like the easy part of the off season was okay. Well, we signed Brent Burns.
Well, you mentioned the Joe Thornton factor, and I really do think that keeping the core together. And I mean, right now the team is 7-7, and if Joe Thornton at the end of this year decides, hey, like I want to go to a team like New York, I want to be on the third line on another team and get a cup before I retire.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I hate that possibility, it's still a possibility. So if Brent Burns, if Joe Thornton decides to leave the Bay Area, and that core kind of falls apart because Joe wants to chase a cup before he retires and doesn't feel like it's going to happen in San Jose, I mean, and Patrick Marleau leaves as well, does the same thing. I mean, that's a possibility. So I really do think that as much as I don't want it to go until the first, like if the Sharks don't make the playoffs this year, which they probably will, but if they don't win the cup this year, if they get bounced in the first round and, Joe Thornton looks at the team and thinks, am I really going to win a cup with this team in the next 5 years? And he decides to leave. Like that's going to weigh on Brent Burns' decision. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna go down the rabbit hole here because like we're usually immune to rabbit holes. So for this once we're gonna go down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
Brent Burns doesn't come back. What do the Sharks do then?
Doesn't come back?
Yes.
Rebuild.
Well,
no.
Burn it down.
But I mean, I really do think that the linchpin to this whole situation is Joe Thornton's decision on whether or not to stay, because I think that's going to influence Patrick Marleau's decision. I think it's going to influence Brent Burns' decision. So I really do think, and as I know people are obviously saying that the Sharks are going to try and deal Marleau, but he does have a no move. So I mean, it's really at the end of the season, if the Sharks don't move him and Joe Thornton decides that he wants to, F off to another team, you're looking at, like you just said, I know you just said rebuild jokingly, but yeah, here you're looking at 3 players that have been essential to the core of this team for the last, Brent Burns not, but Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau the better part of a decade. And I really think that filling those slots isn't going to be as easy as just calling up Timo Meier. So yeah, that would really cause a huge cap situation on the team to try and sign a top. You can't replace Joe Thornton, but like just to try and find someone to at least fill the hole for at least a bit.
And you can't And you can't replace Brent Burns at this point either. Like you have no one in the system that's going to replace Brent Burns.
Dylan DeMello, here we come.
5 years.
Replace Brent Burns. Yeah.
No, I agree. Like you could go after like Shattenkirk in the summer to try and fill, just to put a name back in there. But I don't think that's the answer. I mean, yeah, I think that if you can't retain Brent Burns, like, and maybe this is crazy talk, but I think honestly, I think you finally fire the front office. I think that Doug Wilson pays for that with his job because you have one job, dude. And if you don't do that, I think you should, because I think that if you're going to actually rebuild this team, you need a new face on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You need a new face.
Absolutely.
The draft record isn't strong enough to rebuild through the draft for this team, in my opinion. And again, this is way far off. I know this is rabbit hole shit, but I think if that is a scenario, then I think that you that's what you do. I think you cut, you kind of gut things and hopefully, rebuild through the draft a little bit.
Exactly, because I mean, you have no one coming up the pipeline. Dylan DeMello is going to be the only defensive prospect who is good enough to play in the NHL, and Dylan DeMello isn't Brent Burns. You have Jeremy Waugh, who's going to be out for probably this entire season after his injury.
God, I hope not.
He's the closest thing that could be another Brent Burns, but he's going to be another
Could.
year out because of this injury. So you've got no one coming up to replace him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, enough rabbit holes. So another topic that I kind of saw, kind of going around, I guess. So with the jerseys next year, I guess the Fanatics is going to be the replica jerseys, and if you want it like or the the jerseys that most people get, I guess there'd be like $170 or 130 or 170. I don't know, something
170.
silly.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about this? Like having the Fanatics patch on the fan jerseys, and I guess they're gonna fit a little differently too. To me, like this kind of bothers me, but I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on it. So I'll start with Drew.
I mean, it's petty, yes, but I think sales are going to drop among the harder hockey fans kind of thing. Because if you're getting a replica jersey, yes, you're getting a replica jersey. It's not the exact same thing, but you want it to at least look the same. And that Fanatics patch that's going to be on it instead of Adidas is the obvious giveaway that, oh, this isn't anything like what the players wear. You have a knockoff kind of thing. And if that's the case for me, I'm not going to get a replica jersey because of that, but I'm also not going to drop an extra $200 to get an authentic jersey. What I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to wear the jersey I already have. I'm not going to go out and get a new one. But that's just me.
Joe, what do you...
Well, as someone who owns the two jerseys I do own are both authentics, and I do think that that's kind of I don't know if the NHL weighed that in the decision, what you just said, but I do think that there is that possibility that they're thinking, hey, if we're branding people who buy knockoff jerseys, is that just going to push the sale of authentic jerseys for people who want to be considered legitimate hardcore fans of a team? What if we, brand these crappy jerseys and then kind of jet up the price by $50 for the authentics, and then be like, oh, you want to be a real fan, you're going to fork over an extra $250. And I do think, unfortunately, you're right. The smart man says, that's stupid, I'm just going to keep mine. But if I'm a new fan of a team that just won the Stanley Cup, or if I'm trying to prove myself, I'm dropping $500. Are you kidding me? I don't want to be left out. And again, I agree with you, but just from a common man's perspective of a new fan of a team, I want to be considered be respected among my peers of this new team that I'm a fan of. So you're going to have a lot of, God forbid if the LA Kings win the cup, that's going to be everything. Yeah. God forbid.
Which is going to be interesting because not only with this Fanatics thing, you wonder. I know it sounds like the plan isn't to drastically change the jerseys with the turnover, but I mean if you're if you really want to put the screws to people, don't you drastically change the jerseys for the new thing and then basically make people choose what the hell they're going to do if they're just going to keep wearing last year's jersey or wear the new Adidas one with the Fanatics patch or whatever. I don't know. To me, it sucks. People want to wear what their favorite player's wearing, even if it's not. I don't need a fight strap personally, but you know what? I kind of like how my jerseys fit now because sometimes I do wear them out on the ice, with my gear on, and I can't skate
They're
very
going to
well,
be
so I
tighter,
wear everything.
is that right?
They're
tighter?
going to be more fitting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to me that bothers me, man. I like taking my my replica jerseys on the ice, and throwing them over my gear because I wear all my gear because I don't skate very well. So if I fall, I don't want to break myself. I'm old. Sorry. Yeah, it bugs me. I think it's really unfortunate that the NHL's gone this way. I understand from a money perspective that and the other thing too is it's not the end of the world if you're wearing something that you bought on NHL.com. Fanatics probably already made it, if it's not a sweater. Yeah. So I think there's that. I'd like to see what the quality is, but I just yeah, I don't like it. And I've heard more, negative things than positive things about it. So I guess that brings us to just to kind of a quick Barracuda update. Barracuda went 1-1 on the weekend. Timo had 2 points yesterday. He looked a little bit better this week. He's still finding his stride. He took some penalties today, but some were really dumb. Like today, he took a double minor for roughing, for legitly laying out a clean hit and then getting punched in the helmet. That was his 4-minute double minor for roughing. He got jumped and got a double minor for it.
Wow.
But I mean, to be fair though, it's nice that he's learning in the AHL that the Sharks are going to get crappy penalties called.
That's true. That's true.
At this point in his career.
So they lost a high scoring one yesterday. I think it was 6-5 was the final score.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't catch the end of the game, but I caught all the goals, and it was kind of they're a fun team to watch. Like the Barracuda, I had more fun watching that 6-5 loss than I did that 5-0 loss. I'll tell you that much right now. And today they won 3-1 game, empty netter goal. Man, Chartier destroyed, like, just the shot that Chartier had in front of the net in the power play. Was stupid.
Chartier LeBanc 2017.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So there's it's gonna be they're fun to watch. I'm telling you right now, especially if you're super sour on the Sharks, go check out a Barracuda game. They're fun games to watch. Yeah, they don't always win, and and look at their defense is meh, their goaltending's okay. Armalis, he's an interesting guy. I don't know if you guys have caught much of Armalis playing. He's weird, like he's unorthodox, but not in a good way. Like he's not Dominic Hasek unorthodox, but somehow he still makes saves, and you're like, how did he stop that? He's kind of rolled and contorted his body. I don't get him. I'm not gonna lie, I don't get Armalis. Yet somehow he stops the puck. I don't know if you guys caught any of Armalis yet, really playing.
I haven't. No.
I haven't even
seen Grosnick.
Yeah. Grosnick's doing better than last year.
That's good.
Go ahead.
Good. Yeah, I haven't seen Armalis either. I've watched him practice during training camp, talking with oh my god. I am blanking right now. Oh, jeez. All right, come back to me.
Wait,
I'm gonna get killed for this.
What the coach?
No. Just come back to me.
Okay, I'm coming back to you. Don Hollier says the AHL is still charging a lot. Yes, look at the Barracuda. They're still a pricey ticket when you compare them to other AHL teams. I acknowledge this, but they're still. I mean, yeah, obviously the tank isn't full, and not that it's full anytime lately, but it's not really full. But I mean, it's still they're an exciting team to watch. And I'm not saying like you should all just ditch the Sharks and. I'm not saying ditch the Sharks and become Barracuda fans. I'm just saying that if you have the time, go watch a game. Oh, watch online? Yeah, don't do that. Go to the game. Don't watch online. AHL Live is fucking stupid. I have ways to watch online, but I'm certainly not paying the millions of dollars for AHL Live. Drew, go ahead. You know who you're talking to now?
I do know who I'm talking about. Zach, I'm sorry, you're gonna kill me. I just blanked on your name. But yeah, talking to Zach Devine about Armalis. I know Zach's not a huge fan of him, kind of thing. Seeing him in training camp, I wasn't big on him either. But yeah, we were both talking about Grosnick has looked a lot better. I guess he went to a site coach or something like that. Helps him see the play, helps him track the puck, kind of thing, and I guess it's paying off for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also really think
go ahead. No, go, please.
I was just going to say, I think at this point, too, just because Martin Jones has started most of the games this season, and Aaron Dell only has that one start in New York, I would not be surprised if we see the Sharks send Aaron Dell down and call up Grosnick if they do need him to start playing games to kind of relieve Martin Jones, because they don't want to overwork him early in the season.
And Megan,
just because I feel like Grosnick might be a little hotter right now.
Yeah, Megan Phillips saying general admission tickets are only 16, so not that bad. Okay, I mean I only go by, I'm not there, so I only go by what I'm told, and I've been told that compared to like some teams like I want to say like Stockton, like there's a little bit of a price gap there between what you would pay to go, but I'm not there, so I'm just talking on my butt. But you know what? Actually, it's a good question here because we kind of have a little bit of time left, and I thought something that is a worthy topic, and maybe it's a can of worms that I shouldn't open with 10 minutes left. But what is going on with this Jones Dell thing? Like, is it like how do you guys feel about this? Do you feel like this is just Peter DeBoer trying to? Because I don't think Jones has been stellar, and I wonder if DeBoer is just trying to play Jones through it, or if he just doesn't, or is it that he doesn't trust Dell? And I'm not sure which it is. Joe, any thoughts on that?
I mean, I was talking about this yesterday, but I do think, DeBoer has a track record of struggling in his sophomore year with teams. I mean, I know New Jersey lost a ton of their key players, so it's kind of hard to kind of compare the two situations. But I think it could be parts of both. I think it could be Jones just maybe having a bit of a sophomore slump, and it could be Peter DeBoer. Peter DeBoer just having a bit of hesitation because Aaron Dell doesn't have any experience backing up in the NHL. But that being said, I do think that I think right now that it's not so much Jones's fault for a lot of the goals that have gone in. He's had a lot of bad bounces. You look at the Sidney Crosby goal last night where it kind of just banked in off of him. I think that that's just like a perfect example of what the puck luck has been like for Jones this early.
I agree.
Season. So I don't think that it's time to fire the alarm, fire that, sophomore slump gun yet. I do think that he's just, along with the rest of the team, struggling and just having really crappy luck right now. And I don't think you can really place the blame on any one player on the Sharks right now. I just think collectively as a team, they're just kind of in this haze right now of they had this really grueling 5-game road trip to start the season. They coming back from the World Cup of Hockey. I just think that they have this kind of flu-like thing going through the lineup right now, where they're just kind of a little groggy, and I think that they're going to get out of it. And I think, come New Year, I think they're going to be fine. But I don't think Jones is wrong.
I have.
What do you think, Drew?
I have noticed that Jones isn't making the huge saves like he did at times last season. Like, you remember the save he made on I don't remember who it was, but it was an LA player, second period, made a nice save, came across the crease in his debut. And you're not seeing those magnificent saves right now. But, like Joe said, I don't think a lot of those goals are his fault. Getting bad bounces. I know there's been a couple that have been absolute snipes from that right face-off circle. They go glove side, and there's that spot right around here, above the shoulder or next to the shoulder kind of thing. That's hard to position yourself for. It takes a perfectly placed shot to get there. And he's had that happen to him 2 or 3 times this season. So while he's not making the spectacular saves like he was last year, I don't think there's been too many bad goals against either. I want to see a little bit more how it plays out. Give it to Thanksgiving or January. See where it goes from there.
For sure. I think yesterday, we kind of said on the show that, there's been a couple of too many times where I've heard, oh, Jones probably wants that one back, and I've agreed. I mean, so that's a little bit concerning, but I think I agree. To just throw this out on Jones, maybe he's getting a little bit too much work. And I thought that either, I'm sure I'm not alone. The Calgary or Arizona game was a perfect time to throw Dell in the net, and they didn't. And I think that's on Peter DeBoer. But in general, this is a team that's just not playing well at all. So
been incredibly unlucky.
Yeah, I know they're incredibly unlucky, but there's also and I get that, and I understand that. I do understand the PDO factor. I just feel like they just look out of sync. Guys that have played together forever just look like they've never played together before. So and the guys that have never played together look bad.
Part of that also is due to the fact that I again, I know I said a lot of this yesterday on my Twitter account, but I hate that DeBoer, after those 2 games against Calgary and Arizona, switched back to putting Hurdle on the first line. I hated that. And I think that to do that after 2 games against 2 crappy teams that were just in their own ruts, and they kind of had breakout games against us, and the Sharks are famous for that. They always give those struggling teams those good games. And I think that to completely alter your lineup when you're facing the team that defeated you in the Stanley Cup final, to go back to the lineup essentially that they beat 2 weeks ago and beat in the 6 games in the final, that's such a crappy coaching move. That's an insanely poor move. And for a myriad of reasons, the most of which being like long term, you're not letting players develop chemistry. Part of the reason I think Vodka is struggling right now is because he's been kind of put on 3 different lines in the better part of 5 weeks. Like, you can't build chemistry when you're joining a new team and playing with 9 different guys. You're not going to gel with anyone.
And yeah, exactly. Missed training camp. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're trying to find it on the fly. Yeah, I'm not saying like, I don't want to completely, like yesterday, I don't want to completely white knight Bodker, but there is an aspect of it where you're like, well, yeah, but no one has chemistry right now, it feels like. And I completely agree. And I think if you can't find someone to fill in on that top line, then stop putting Haley in the lineup, send him down, and then try one of the kids. Call up one of the Barracuda kids. Maybe you try LeBanc. Maybe they're just waiting for Timo to get healthy enough that they can try him there. But you obviously can't find anyone to skate with the Joes on the top line with anyone that's on the roster. You've gone back to Carlson there. You've put with the way the lines have been blended, you've kind of put everybody there at this point, and no one, you can't seem to find much. And I don't think, I've been a big proponent of, we can't just leave Hurl on that line forever. Like, he's gonna have to be able to find his way and actually play on his own line and not just be the ancillary piece, where he's too important to the future of this franchise for him to just be, the buddy of the Joes, that third piece. So they need to find him a spot, and I think that on the third line, I like that third line with him and Marleau down there, and add another player. Melker Karlsson, I think, was the other player. I like that line. I thought that line played pretty good. So I'd like to see a Kevin LeBlanc get called up, but actually play on the top line. See what you have there. Okay, you have to sit someone in the press box. Fine. They have enough cap space that if they sent someone like Haley down, then they're gonna, I don't think Haley's in any risk of being taken on waivers. You can call up a guy like LeBanc. Yeah, obviously Nieto's getting taken on waivers. Wingles might be, and honestly, that might be fantastic for you. Like, I'm at the point now where it's like, if you lose Wingles on waivers, then you just gain cap space. Yes, you don't gain an asset, but at this point, hell, I would take the cap space happily. That's me. Drew, any final thoughts as we kind of wrap this up here?
No, I mean, I totally agree. I'd love to see LeBanc get a shot. I thought maybe he had a chance to make the starting roster this season after I watched him play in the exhibition. Maybe they are waiting for Timo Meier. We'll see how it goes. I'd love to see one of those kids, get called up.
Even Goldobin.
Yeah,
even Goldobin. I was gonna say that. Yeah.
Put Goldobin on that wing. It's like
that whole line's been solid.
Yep. LeBanc, Goldobin, Chartier.
Yeah. That line's been dynamite. Like, I would even take another look. So maybe you don't want to bring up LeBanc yet. And I think LeBanc getting a bunch of minutes in the AHL is fine for him. But I think a guy like Goldobin, who, he's disappointed in the past. I get that, but this is another guy where you just have to kind of use him and hope he figures it out. This guy's a first-round pick. He's not going to get better playing under Sommer in the AHL much longer. Like, there's only so much more he's going to learn down there. So it's time to put some big boy pants on Goldobin and see what we really have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'd be fine on that line with the Joes. So I mean, there's obviously something we'll obviously revisit as we continue through the season, because again, we don't only just talk about just general NHL stuff. We do talk some Sharks. Obviously, Shark stuff is what gets a lot of our listeners here. So the important thing, obviously, guys, though, is keep your questions coming. Your questions have really helped make half of the show the last, I think, 3 weeks in a row. And it's awesome, because I would rather talk about stuff that you would like us to talk about than me decide what's important to you. So if you like what you hear and you like what you see, please be sure to subscribe to our channel, Pucknology Writers Room. If you want to see the Pucknology After Dark, obviously subscribe over there. Subscribe to our audio feed. You can find us on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, all the places. Okay, so final thoughts for the night. Joe, thanks for joining us again.
Oh yeah, again, thank you for dealing with my tardiness. But yeah, I think it's not do or die, because it's just the start of November, but I think it's time to try, because like right now the team is 7-7, I do think right now that it's a good enough point in the season where we know what we have kind of works, but it also kind of doesn't. So now is the time, I think, to kind of start experimenting. Call up LeBanc, call up Goldobin, throw in, see what works. The worst that can happen right now is that something works and sticks. I'd rather have three bad games and then 12 great games after that than 7 great games and 7 bad ones. So.
Yeah, I mean,
Slushy just asked, did we tank for Nolan Patrick? No, this draft is not good. We should not tank under any circumstances.
Isn't Nolan Patrick like going to be a second liner in the NHL kind of thing? It's not even a top line guy.
Nolan Patrick's going to be a good player, but if you don't win the lottery, then you might not get a good player.
Yeah.
I don't think it's time to panic. I think we just need to sit back, relax, watch the PDO do its regression, because that's what PDO does. I mean, just look at the Montreal Canadiens. Heck, look at the Vancouver Canucks. So, I mean, I think this team is gonna start to get things clicking, going to start having the bounces go its way, but they do need to pick up the energy a little bit because that has admittedly been lacking. But it's going to be a good season. I'm still not down on this team yet.
Yeah.
Like my thing says, what, me worry? No, I'm not worried. I'm disappointed with how some of the games have gone, for sure. But there's a lot of season left, and I'm not throwing in the towel in November. Like we saw this team last year. This team last year was pretty putrid for a good third of the season. And
they also had no Logan Couture.
Well, I don't care.
Yeah,
and he overcame
no
that.
Logan Couture right now. Logan Couture's been awful. But no, I think I think it's going to be fine. Just stick with it. I'm sure it's going to be good. Be sure, if you can, to check out a Barracuda game. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. And that's it. So thank you for watching this week, guys. See us again next week. I'm sure we'll have cool things to talk about. Again, your questions make this show better. So get your questions, get your topics into me, and I will be happy to have us talk about them. Have a good night, gang.
Later.
Later.